And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, which is even a little bit better than the Pistons 2-19 record. Well, but anyway, I'm Taylor Phillips along with Ed Smith. So we just mentioned Pistons, so they're out of the way. So the Michigan Wolverines, they flattened the Iowa Hawkeyes 23-0 in the Big Ten football championship game. I know Michigan's defense is great, but man, Iowa's offense decided not to show up. If they did, they would have done. They would have imitated the Secretary of State striptease on Monty Python's Flying Circus, like I just posted last Saturday night. I was just laughing hard. I wasn't even too excited. So, Ed, just a one-sided game in favor of the Wolverines. Third straight Big Ten football championship.
Yeah, it was a bit one-sided, you could say so, Taylor, but it wasn't that way, that type of feeling the whole game, because let's be honest, even though the final score was 26-0.
26-0.
Yeah.
I thought it was 20.
It was, even though the final score is 26-0, Michigan had to earn every single last point. Because the Iowa defense that they had faced, shout out to that defense. First and foremost, the defensive coordinator for the Hawkeyes, Phil Parker, because that was one reason why the Iowa defense had a good job of neutralizing of what Michigan would normally do. Because they're so well coached, it speaks into how well they played. Very well disciplined, very attention to detail, very focused football. That at least they play on the defensive side of things. Obviously, he can't speak for Brian Ferentz. He can't speak for how much of a pitiful job the offense has done, yet somehow, thanks in part to the division that Iowa resided in, because this is the last year of that we're going to be seeing in the Big Ten Conference in regard to divisions. But nonetheless, you still played who's in front of you, and Michigan still had to play this team. And frankly, knowing the type of game that was expected of them, they still were able to handle the business with flying colors. Not too many people got hurt in this one. I know they're already without Zach Zinter coming in this one, and there was some concern in regards to Drake Nugent, the center, being injured during this game. But I believe since things didn't get too serious, and knowing that you got a full month of rest coming up between now and the Rose Bowl, the fact that you're able to get out with as little to minimal, injury to key and important players as possible, that was very much huge. So you looked good, or looked good enough, and not too many people of importance got hurt in there. But it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't always that way. After, I guess I would say, a back and forth first half, teams making stops defensively. The game really turned on its head, really, with special teams, which we would think would be an Iowa specialty, or at least an Iowa advantage. Turned out to be one for Michigan's advantage, because Samaje Morgan, with a big punt return, that's what helped open up the scoring for Michigan, and they never looked back. So it was his big punt return. I think it was like 86 or so yards that led to the first of two Blake Corum touchdowns. Definitely the first big turning point of the game. And from that point on, even if they had never scored another point, that was all they needed. Because from the terms of what the Michigan did on the defensive side of the ball, between getting adequate pressure, stopping the run, and, oh, by the way, getting 3 turnovers, all of them caused by 3 fumbles. 2 of those, by the way, caused by Mike Sanders still, who, by the way, on top of that, almost had an interception. And for the senior, who was, let's not forget his journey, former 3-star recruit, was originally a wide receiver, then got converted into a wideout last year, I believe, or so. And then ever since then has been nothing but big play after big play after big play in moments when you need it most, especially when you needed it against Ohio State, or you needed a pick 6 against Michigan State, for example. Mike Sanders still has always been there or seemingly been there to make a play when he needed the most. So, and it was evident again in this game against Iowa. The two fumbles caused, almost had an interception, and again, his presence was all over that defensive side of the field. And with how he's played, especially without having Will Johnson in this game either, as well. That was another name that the Wolverines were without as well. Still doing that shows Mike Samuel's value to this team. Shows how important how high, in my opinion, his NFL stock should be, and it speaks to um, again the overall theme of this team of being used to adversity, overcoming it, and it's very quite inspiring to see almost.
Yep. So back to back to back Big Ten championships for
Yep.
Michigan. Yeah.
3 straight undisputed Big Ten titles, by the way, because that's something that's never been ever done by a Michigan coach. When you think about it, not Yost, not Oosterbaan, not Bo, not Lloyd Carr, none of those coaches. So the fact that this was done under Jim Harbaugh's tenure speaks for itself. Speaks of what of a job he's done with his coaches and his coaching staff, and of course his players. Many of them led by seniors such as Blake Corum, who, by the way, tied Anthony Thomas's school record of rushing touchdowns in this game as well. That's worth of important to note as well. And I mentioned something about turnovers and fumbles being caused by Mike Sanders. Still, for example, another one, I think a second one of those fumbles that was caused by Sanders. Still, initially, in terms of replay or whatever, looked like an incomplete pass live on the play. But after officials were able to look at it for some reason, whether it be you want to say it's controversial or beneficial, or whatever side of the coin you look at, uh, it was a big help to Michigan because and also good awareness by Josh Wallace, because his awareness to the play of picking up that loose ball was beneficial to the Wolverines gaining possession of that ball as a turnover in the replay, and that led to another score. And again, it was just on top of others. Was it Ferentz getting an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty because of his reaction to it? It was like, okay, this is like the nail in the coffin, because once you added in a second Blake Corum touchdown after that, that was essentially game over. That was essentially game over right then and there.
Yeah, absolutely. Iowa almost never even entered Michigan territory even from the looks of it. And when I was listening to the radio on the way, I was like, man, Iowa just keeps going 3-0 over and over again in the second half. And then that turnover on downs, of course, before that, I must be going in reverse. But anyway, Michigan's defense just took full advantage.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what type of possession that Iowa had, because it didn't matter against this Michigan defense. It's front seven, the way they were able to generate pressure, stop the run the way it normally does, and then just take advantage of mistakes and opportunities. Braden McGregor, who himself had a strip sack fumble himself, that led to, what was it, Kenneth Grant. Again, another name that you're going to be hearing a lot from here on out if you're a Michigan fan, in my opinion, based on his development, based on what his current status is. And he's only a sophomore. He had himself a pair of fumble recoveries in this game. Go on top of the fact that he's been very active around the ball. I think he's had a couple other recoveries. I know he's had an interception or two. And frankly, for a man his size, 6'4", 340 pounds, it's quite astounding, freakish, frankly, if to look at how he moves on the football field sometimes. So be looking forward to seeing big things from him in a Wolverine uniform before his time in Michigan is done.
Yeah. So Mikey Sanders still is a senior. He has to be drafted after this season is over. The Lions may need a secondary defender as well.
Yeah, I'm just saying, man. Lions. I'm just saying, it's like you took the words out of my mouth, Taylor. You must have read my mind about if I'm Brad Holmes, that wouldn't be one player I wouldn't mind looking up to possibly essentially snatch in the early rounds.
There you go. So with that, with all that being said, with Georgia losing to Alabama, Michigan climbs all the way up to number 1 in the college football playoff rankings.
Mm-hmm.
Washington Huskies 2, Texas Longhorns 3, Alabama Crimson Tide at 4, instead of Florida State, who finished their regular season undefeated.
13-0, and
Yeah.
they won their conference championship.
Yeah, I don't understand how the Seminoles would not get in.
It's simple. It's called the committee used the injury of their quarterback Josh Travis as an excuse as to why as to one reason, because at the end it's even it's even explained in the outline of their selection criteria. You know, things such as other key factors like injury to key players, how teams at response to certain adverse conditions such as that, that weighed heavily on the committee's mind. And knowing for the fact that you have to either deal with that or just deal with a 12-1 SEC champion Alabama team that, oh, by the way, just took down the number 1 team and back-to-back reigning national champion that was coming off of a 29-game win streak in Georgia. So knowing that, first and foremost, Texas had to go in because what they beat Alabama, I think it would have been a bigger travesty if Texas had been left out, more so versus if Florida State had been left out. Like, for example, like Seth said, say Florida State got in because they were 13-0 and Texas didn't, even though they're 12-1 themselves. They won their conference championship. And oh, by the way, like I said, they beat Alabama at their place by double digits. So if Alabama had gotten their spot, you better believe that Texas had deserved their spot as well. So knowing that one team had to be left out, and unfortunately, since this is what the last year of the 14 deal, right, doesn't switch to 12 teams until next season, someone had to be left out, and unfortunately, it's Florida State. And frankly, I think the committee got it right because in terms of wanting to have the 4 best teams, while I understand Florida State is very much so deserving of their spot, and I understand there's also precedent of a team losing their first string quarterback or their second string quarterback, as it was with Ohio State in 2014, and it seemed to have not affected them whatsoever. Here's the thing. What Florida State shown once their quarterback went down was far, far different than, say, Cardale Jones picking up the slack for the Buckeyes. Far different case whatsoever. And the committee saw all that, and that's why I decided to put in Alabama. And frankly, if you're Michigan, I'm not too upset. First and foremost, let's talk about the fact that this is the first time Michigan is going to be ranked number 1, at least in the AP, since 1998, which is what right after they had finished their 97 season undefeated and won their share of the national championship. So a lot of historical reference and precedence and that fact alone. Now considering the fact that, hey, Michigan is not going to be playing the quote unquote easier team in Florida State, and instead is going to be playing a much more competitive and tougher draw in Alabama. Frankly, I look forward to the challenge because if you're going to go on this theme of it's Michigan versus everybody, and also the fact that, hey, you want to be seen as the best, well, guess what? At some point, you got to beat the best. To paraphrase off of the old Ric Flair quote, to beat a man, you got to beat the man. Well, to be the best, you got to beat the best. And frankly, let's not forget that this team had supposedly had a drill, a practice drill that they were running. Remember when leading up to Ohio State, they hadn't beaten Ohio State yet? They had run the drill called Beat Ohio. We saw how that worked out, right? Well, guess what? Coming in this year, they had a drill called Beat Georgia. And frankly, the only difference between this and now, you just got to switch out the names. Instead of Georgia, it's Beat Bama. Because frankly,
Yep.
this is the same caliber that your team that you're facing, if not stronger. Because you would obviously, as we could tell, this Georgia team was just not as good as we saw in back-to-back years. But even still, this is still Alabama. This is still one of the perennial SEC program, and what Nick Saban is still the head coach.
Yeah.
So all that has to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, so sometimes the rankings don't even matter. You got to play 60 minutes against Nick Saban and company.
Yeah, and say what you want about how Alabama needed essentially that Hail Mary against Auburn. Well, you still have to go out there and play and win. And I can't criticize or fault Alabama for doing what they were supposed to do.
They
Again,
won.
yeah. So, like I said, once you beat a team like Georgia, and frankly, the way that Alabama had beat them, they more than absolutely deserved a spot in that playoff. So it's just a
Yeah,
matter. It was just a matter of who was going to be left out. And frankly, knowing that you were not going to leave out Texas, someone had to be left out. Unfortunately, it was Florida State.
yeah, and simple thing. Just don't choke it like you did against Georgia and TCU. If you're Michigan, play a much better first half, and then play a really good second half as well. Play 60 minutes.
Honestly, the way that they played against TCU, they had no business being in that game the way they were. When you consider the fact what two pick sixes, the failed Philly special, the fumble on the goal line, all that working in the Wolverines' favor, and yet they still had a chance to win the ball to win the game late with a last minute drive. People want to point out the mistakes and the turnovers that JJ McCarthy had in that game, yet they don't want to point out how he played in getting us back out of that hole to begin with. And I think even though JJ had made a couple of throws in that Iowa game, in that Big Ten championship game, that he might have felt down on, I liked how Coach Harbaugh was able to immediately pick him up on his confidence, say, "No, JJ, you did fine out there," which I'm fine with because coming into a game like this and against a defense like the Crimson Tide, you're going to want your starting quarterback to be as confident as possible because I still believe a part of that TCU game still lingers in JJ's psyche. So for him, this would be one way to confront that demon by redeeming yourself against, of all teams, an Alabama defense on of all stages, the Rose Bowl.
Yep.
I mean, I understand. Listen, we still got plenty of weeks, plenty of time to cover this game, but I'll say this. The line right now at the moment is Michigan -1.5, so it's as close to a pick 'em as you can get. Um, I'll just say this: it's early, but I'll take those chances. I'll take those odds.
Yep. There you go. Yeah.
I understand Nick Saban has a full month to prepare and get his players ready. So, but guess what? So does Jim Harbaugh. So does Jesse Minter. So does Sharon Moore. So does Jay Harbaugh. Okay. So Michigan will have their players just as ready. It's just as prepared too. And we're going to have a full month of rest to get as healthy as possible. We still likely will not have Zach Zinter. I still believe what Drake Nugent will be available.
Yeah. I got
And you still,
1 month to prepare.
and not to mention, you're still going to have a healthy Blake Corman for this game and Donovan Edwards.
Yeah.
Always keep that in consideration.
Almost the entire gang will be here. So Monday on New Year's Day. Let's see here.
They will be the first of the of the
Jay.
of the two semifinal games. They'll be on at 5, and then
ESPN.
the Sugar Bowl between Washington and Texas will be on at 8, or at least as soon as the Rose Bowl finishes.
Yep. January 1st at 5 p.m. on ESPN at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. Michigan has not been to the Rose Bowl since 2003 or
Uh,
2005.
I was going to say 2005. That was the Vince Young
They
game
lost to
against Texas.
Texas. And then
Well, somewhat understandable because it was Vince Young. But then again, I do slight correction. They did go again though after the 2006 season because that was the year when Ohio State, even though they won the 1 versus 2 matchup against Michigan, they were Big Ten champions. The BCS needed them in the Big Ten champ and the BCS national championship game. So what? That left the spot open for the Rose Bowl, and with Michigan being the runner-up in the Big Ten for that year, that's how they drew USC in that year's Rose Bowl before they got unfortunately
oh yeah,
curb stomped in that one too. So
yeah.
Michigan has had some bad luck, so to speak, in winning the Rose Bowl and for a long time. Yeah.
Well, I mean, from 2000 to 2006 in that area, they didn't even have a player drafted in round one. Colin Cowherd pointed that out a long time ago.
You're talking about Alabama.
Oh, I mean, Well, I mean, Michigan from 2000 to 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Really, they didn't have a player drafted in the first round?
exactly.
Not even Braylon Edwards?
No,
Huh. I could have sworn at least one of those wide receivers would be David Terrell and Braylon Edwards. One of those two had to been drafted in the first round. That's weird. But anyway, because I thought you would have been talking about Alabama, but pre Saban.
nope, nope.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I found it out. I found it out on a video on YouTube. Colin rips Michigan football. That was a video from a long time ago when they had Lloyd Carr.
Mm-hmm.
So
A lot has changed since the days of Lloyd, to say the least.
yeah, I know. Rich Rod and then Brady Hoke and now Jim Harbaugh, who finally rights the ship. Can he break that drought? By the way, we'll find out come New Year's Day. But we'll
And we'll
preview
also
that.
and we'll also yeah, we'll preview that, and also we'll find out if by then or by now if he'll have signed or is in a process of getting ready to sign his new contract extension. Because as reported by several outlets, including the Wolverine Daily, I believe, and John U. Bacon earlier today, details have been leaked out in terms of the school, the athletic department wanting to finalize this contract extension for Jim Harbaugh. It is, I believe, at 5 years, 55 million. So that's 11 million a year. That would easily make him the highest paid coach in the Big Ten. It would speak on the comments he had made in October before the sign gate situation really exploded, of Harbaugh wanting to feeling wanted, knowing that he was feeling wanted, and speaking to the effect of um, uh, seeing a contract offer or a contract extension offer will be one key sign of that. Well, frankly, despite of this whole regards with Connor Stallions and the NCAA and the Big Ten wanting to offer in judgments without completing investigations, all that under consideration, President Ono and the athletic department has stood steadfast with Coach Harbaugh throughout this ordeal. To the point to where now they have this offer. Apparently, and then I think it's also smart on their end to want to get this out into the media, so that way, like I said, it puts the ball in Harbaugh's court, especially knowing with the potential hurdles of, hey, he may be getting some suitors from the NFL again soon. We want to make sure that, hey, this is what you wanted. This is what you wanted. You want your money, you want security, you want to stay here in Michigan. And by the way, more than likely, you're much more in a better chance to get more control at Michigan than you would against coaching at any NFL franchise. So all that has to be taken into consideration. And frankly, I do believe at some point, whether it may be before the game, it may be after the Alabama game, but I still believe that Harbaugh will sign that contract.
Oh, well, we'll keep our eyes on that. So the Lions, they edged the New Orleans Saints 33-28. They jump out 21-0 in the first quarter, and they almost blow it. But funny thing is, the Lions never even trailed in the game. Their offense was on and off. But I want to state some pros and cons. Zero turnovers. They didn't turn the ball over at all. They made better plays on offense, including the double reverse to Jamison Williams, and the pass rush on defense came back. And the offensive line only allowed one sack. Now, just a couple of cons here. Like I pointed out, 249 passing yards allowed, which is still unacceptable, but that's just the secondary. I know the pass rush was back. It was there, but the secondary, again. And then that roughing the passer call, which was an easy call on Bruce Irvin, who had a sack earlier. He at the rule, Dean Blandino, or should I say Mike Pereira, actually, the Fox NFL rules analyst, said that Bruce pointed out that Bruce Irvin drove Derek Carr, and you can't do that. And Derek Carr ended up being injured and out for the rest of the game, which set up the touchdown by the Saints. But the Lions defense forced a 4-and-out on the Saints final ensuing drive, and then the Lions got the first down. Josh Reynolds, game over. So Ed, what do you say?
Well, let's talk about first and foremost of that 21-0 start, because I want to focus on that positive aspect. Because let's take in consideration of how the offense for the last couple of games now has been so inconsistent, and like you mentioned, Taylor, with the turnovers, big problem in the past couple of games. So they went out and made a statement from, frankly, the opening drive, being physical, being upfront, and frankly, if you watch the Sights and Sounds clip, Taylor Decker just said and foremost, get back to doing what we do best, being physical dogs. He also added a couple of choice words in there. I'm not going to repeat it at the moment. I think it's necessary right now, but it spoke. You could see what he was talking about all throughout those first three drives, whether it be setting the tone with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Both of those two running backs, by the way, being used in a way to where it's a shared balance. You're seeing Jahmyr getting the big yards and getting the gash plays and whatnot, and then you're seeing David Montgomery finishing up drives with touchdowns near the goal line. So it works itself out perfectly, honestly. And then on the next drive, you have Sam Laporta cashing in on a touchdown, which frankly was an indicator of the type of day he was going to have. 9 catches for 140 yards, and that aforementioned touchdown. Worth mentioning by the way, that those 140 yards, the record set by a rookie Lions tight end in a single game. So big props to Laporta on that. He's been showing himself to be one of, in my opinion, the top offensive rookies on the game this year, and frankly, one of the best tight ends in all of football for this year. And the fact that he's doing it immediately out the gate speaks volumes to his skill set as a player and how he fits and complements this team perfectly. Speaking of rookies, that again, once again with the theme, rookies standing out. Brian Branch, he had himself another one-headed interception this today that led to points. Amon-Ra St. Brown, even though he had a bit of a quiet day, he still had a necessary touchdown catch. And with this performance in this game, just had enough yards, to cross over the 1,000-yard threshold for the second straight season. So big kudos to the Sun God on that. Unfortunately, though, like you said, Taylor, there was a comeback by the Saints. I think, first and foremost, it starts with the fact that the Saints were able to make adjustments. They knew that Derek Carr using Derek Carr as the primary option with his dropbacks, holding on to the ball too long. It led to the opportunities of where the defense capitalized, got pressure, got turnover, and frankly, led to that position where they were up 21-0 to begin with. It got so bad to the point where on plays where Taysom Hill were being subbed in for Derek Carr, the fans were cheering so loud that they booed when Carr would ever go back into the game. It was like watching an episode of SpongeBob come to life. So knowing that, despite all that, good perseverance by New Orleans. Like, they utilized Alvin Kamara when necessary. They were able to get long, extended drives. And frankly, when you have the Lions offense starting to become inconsistent and having short drives in themselves, that what puts a tired defense back out on the field, they're only going to get more tired. So that didn't surprise me to see the Saints scoring more touchdowns as a result of that. And also, like I mentioned, the aforementioned Taysom Hill effect. Whenever he was in the game, he was able to make plays that offset the rhythm of the Lions defense. Like, even though you knew it was going to be a designed run, you knew that was the reason why they brought him in the game. They just couldn't find a way to neutralize or slow that down. So it was almost always a net positive whenever Taysom Hill entered the game. Even to the fact that, yeah, Derek Carr went down, yeah, famous Jameis Winston came into the game. it still really didn't matter so much because what you had, I know that it was that big play, that touchdown set up by a Chris Olave catch, but frankly, it almost came about because of a tip pass by Brian Branch that led directly into that Olave catch, which again it was just bad timing, bad luck, however you want to look at it. But the Lions still found a way to overcome it, and like you mentioned before, Taylor, with the turnovers, Detroit
Right.
being plus
It's
two in
uncovered, but
takeaways.
still,
You
Lions
know,
get the victory.
there's yeah, again, and when you're plus two in takeaways, when you run the ball the way that the Lions were doing, um, and you're not making mistakes the way Jared Goff was doing, taking care of the ball, being smart, and also coming up clutch when necessary on his part, showing crucial escapability and stepping up in the pocket, facing down pressure, which you said, Taylor, was something he had to get better at. He did a much better job facing pressure in this game, and it led to him sealing the game on that last first down catch to Josh Reynolds. So good win in my opinion. Much needed bounce back win after the disappointment on Thanksgiving against the Packers. And frankly, knowing how this team has done before in December against Dan Campbell the past 2 years, very crucial for them to start off this December with a win, and they got that.
Yep. And with that, they improved to 9-3, while the Vikings and Bears had the bye week. The Packers won their game. They improved to 6-6. And
So
the
I
magic number
believe
is 3.
0 to 4 or 3, depending on
It's
what it
3.
what's like. Yeah, so it is 3.
It has to be 3.
I know it's at least 4 because
It was for the previous week.
right. But I think
Maybe it's 3. Maybe it's 3.5. It can be 3.5.
went to 3. It would have won to 3 for sure if the Packers had lost. But because they had won, it may be at 4. But either way, it's dwindling for what the Lions need to do in terms of having to clinch the division at least.
Yeah, true. But anyway, the NFC number 1 seed watch, don't forget, the Philadelphia Eagles lost to the San Francisco 49ers 41-19. And with that, the 49ers tied with the Lions at 9-3. The Eagles dropped to 10-2. So that race is up for grabs as well. That race is more up for grabs than the NFC North division.
It may be, but it may be probably a little bit too difficult for the Lions to probably catch up because you're still going to need Philly to lose another game to an NFC opponent, maybe another loss, 2 more losses period, and I know San Fran is probably going to be dealing with a pesky Rams team or whatever, unless they've already played them twice already. But that being said, I think the Lions should focus more on, hey, do what we can on wrapping up this division. And if, at the very least, we're going to be locked into a top 3 seed because the 4th seed is going to automatically be the NFC South winner. And frankly, it's a good thing that the Cowboys are in the same division as the Eagles, because one of those 2 teams, no matter who wins the division, the other is going to be a wild card team. So if you're the Lions, all you got to do is focus, handle your business, win your division, and you'll be a guaranteed top 3 seed in the conference with a home playoff game to your as your reward.
Yeah. So and I want to touch on something else. Jared Goff said that the team has to play up to urgency as well.
I believe that because you want to enter the playoffs on a roll of momentum. Because let's go back to how the Lions finished the season last year, right? Winning 8 of their last 10. If they had found a way to gotten into the playoffs, they would have been the team with the biggest momentum going into that tournament. Would you agree?
Yeah.
I think
had they not started 1-6, they could have got in a lot easier.
Yeah, understandable. But the way that they finished, it's probably a blessing for some teams that the Lions had missed the playoffs because, like I said, the way that they were rolling, the way that they were focused, the way they were on all cylinders and connected, you did not want to face
on their side.
Yeah, exactly. That was a team you did not want to face in the playoffs. Tell me why I'm seeing similar things in maybe the Packers, possibly, but for sure the Rams. I'm getting same sentiments about the Rams. I'm just letting you know that right now.
Matthew Stafford's return to Ford Field.
I'm
Can you
just
imagine that
saying.
in the playoffs?
I'm just
Yeah,
saying. I don't want to manifest it, but all I'm saying is keep an eye out on that because depending on
it
how
looks like it.
depending on the Rams finish the season too, because they got
Yeah,
us. They still because they're still behind. Technically, they're still behind Green Bay for that and Minnesota for those last two wild card spots.
yeah.
So, but still, I would keep my eye on the Rams because the way Stafford has been going, you know, what I know Puka Nakua has been dealing with injury, and so is Cooper Cup to an extent. But as long as the Rams still got Stafford and you have at least a balanced running game like they seem to have now with their running back that they have, and of course, oh yeah, by the way, you still have Aaron Donald on your defense. So yeah, that still always helps.
Oh, yeah. Watch out for him. So the Lions play the Bears one more time. This time it's Soldier Field Sunday at 1 on Fox. The Lions are 3.5-point favorites. The Bears are 4-8. But the last time the Lions played the Bears, it was at Ford Field. The Lions won 31-26 with that safety in the end by forced by Aiden Hutchinson. Justin Fields was a quarterback keeping running machine. Let's get that right. And Justin Fields is a dangerous weapon, but he's not the only player to watch. Ed, give us the
Yeah,
analysis.
yeah. DJ Moore will be another player to watch as well, and we saw elements of that too, in terms of how he played in the first game against Detroit. So yeah, that'll be a key player to keep an eye on, especially as Justin Fields is going to be looking to be comfortable finding ways to find an adequate, consistent target. I still say keep an eye on him and Cole Kmet to an extent too, the tight end. But knowing the type of versatility and the type of explosiveness that Fields can provide, not just through the air but with his legs as well, will make this a difficult task, like we saw in Ford Field a few weeks back. So I'm knowing that, and also it's on the road, and you're likely dealing with possible weather elements. It will not be easy. Now,
Gonna go both ways.
I will say though, there were some positives. You notice there's one name that I did not mention throughout this portion of this line segment yet. Alex Anzalone,
Full practice.
their starting linebacker, their captain, their leading tackler. He missed last week's game against the Saints due to a thumb injury. He was seen practicing yesterday, I believe, and today, if I'm not certain,
Full
if I'm not
practice.
mistaken.
Full
Yeah,
practice.
full practice while wearing a cast. So I'm expecting him to be, at least he may not be a full 100%. Especially with that injury, with the injury that he sustained to his hand, more specifically his thumb, to a certain extent. But he's going to put a cast on it. He's going to tough it out. He's going to give it a go, and he'll be back out there on Sunday. So his presence, in my opinion, was sorely missed last week again in New Orleans. But I still say the defense held their own. Jack Campbell, I thought, did an adequate job. Calling the plays and Anzalone's placed on the defense. And let's not forget the defense. They did get those 2 takeaways, and they got those multiple stops on 4th down. So when they needed to make a play, the defense stepped up. As much people want to shit on them and shit on Aaron Glenn and say, "Oh, you gave up this amount of yards." Guess what? They still stepped up when you needed it the most. So I would still expect that to be the case here. I want to say with Aiden Hutchinson, I want to see with knowing that Bruce Irvin is making is proven to be a difference maker in terms of giving Aiden Hutchinson more help on that defensive line, which is necessary because great. Now Lee McNeil just went down with injury. He's going to be on injury reserve for at least the next 4 weeks. You're going to need other players on that D line to probably step up to give Aiden some type
Tyson
of help.
Alualu
Yeah, that's why
from the practice squad.
yeah, that's who they
He might
made
be
their
activated.
exactly. That's a good distinct possibility as well. I know James Houston has said he's nearing a return as well, but again, that's still a couple weeks out at least. And speaking of return from injury, I now have a CJ Garner Johnson update for y'all. Apparently, he is posting or hinting at a date of December 20th. Now, I believe that could be a potential date of him being cleared to return to practice. If that's the case, then that's like
December
that
20th, Wednesday.
exactly. That's Wednesday practice. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the day that he gets cleared to return to practice, get himself in the flow of things, and then he'll be ready to rejoin the team before the season ends, which is huge and necessary for that secondary. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But let's preview those Bears, how those two teams match up.
Again, they both match up in terms of stopping the run. You saw that in terms of stopping the run up front at the trenches. They're gonna, in terms of the Lions having to get their yards, they're gonna have to utilize a lot of Jahmyr Gibbs on the outside edge, not between the tackles. Thankfully, again, this is why you have David Montgomery. Your offensive line, even though Frank Ragnow is hurt, he's likely going to miss some time. He'll likely miss this game, but fortunately, Dan Campbell said his injury was not as serious as initially believed. So he'll miss this game. He'll miss some time, but more than likely he'll be back for the Lions. We just don't know when. But even still, I think this is where you see Kobe Sorsdal start to get more snaps, start to get more reps, start to get more experience. I think this is where Graham Glasgow can fill into the center spot. And then you put Sorsdal you put Sorsdal in that opposite spot. You have Jonah Jackson. Thankfully, you still have Sewell. You still have Taylor Decker. That offensive line can still perform. They can still protect. They're still going to have their hands full. You got Montez Sweat to deal with on that defensive line. You also have Tremaine Edmonds. Amongst their linebackers, who's been a problem in terms of getting. I think one of them they got they got those turnovers on golf to begin with the last time they played. So expect that defense to be hunting for another takeaway. I would say so. Taking care of the ball will be key. I think stopping Chicago on the run will be necessary as well, whether it be Justin Fields or whatever running back committee that they use, and just being. Don't let the weather become a factor. Don't let that be a reason to why you're not able to perform or execute. So knowing all that, I think the Lions, what was the line again on Detroit? What, -4, -3.5? I could see the Lions winning by 3. I could see the Lions winning by 3. It's on the road to. I think the Lions. I'd say the Lions would win, but I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't be surprised if Chicago covers. So like a 27-24, 29-26 type of deal. The Lions win, but Chicago covers.
All right. I'm going to go Lions 31 and the Bears 28. If we're going to go a 3-point margin.
So again, we're thinking the same. Detroit wins, but Chicago covers.
Yep, exactly. Sunday at 1 on Fox. Patrick Kane makes his Red Wings debut, hitting the post late in the third, like midway through the third, early in the third period. But Ville Husso just got absolutely rocked after the Red Wings jumped out to a 4-0 lead. They blew it right in the same period. 2 shorthanded goals.
2 shorthanded goals, and you give up a goal right before as the period ends as well. So you couldn't even get to the third period up by a goal. Like you literally blew that whole 4-0 lead within that same time span, which was first and foremost disgusting to look at from a defensive standpoint.
Ville Husso should never play hockey again.
It's infuriating. It was infuriating in terms of, well, no, you can't say that. He's still going to get his chance. But I will say this: Alex Lyon will probably be your starting and goal next game. I don't see Husso starting the next game after this. It was just.
I think Lyon should be the number 1 goaltender based on statistics. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, with the way Husso's playing, you're wondering if he should even be the backup goalie. Should even be the third stringer. Should probably be on a stint to Grand Rapids the way he's been playing as of late.
That's what I was mentioning
because he's given up 3 because he's given up 3 or more goals in 14 straight home games. That's inexcusable, and I understand that he was dealing with multiple odd man rushes. Defense was far from efficient tonight. I get that, but that still falls on you, the goaltender, to at least make a stop on one of those odd man rushes.
365 goals against average for Ville Husso. That's almost 4.
That's again inexcusable.
Just an 886 save percentage too.
Ugh. Disgusting.
Terrible. Beyond terrible. For Christ's sake.
Like, I was seeing some development from him in earlier games, but this was just no. This is a flat out bad performance. He was giving up too many soft goals. In my
Forget
opinion.
about development. I mean, he had a couple good games, but they were both just flukes. His wheels have finally his wheels have been off his own wagon for a long time.
He needs a reset. I think, like I said, I think he should have been benched midway through the game. I definitely think he should not start the next game. Whatever was his next scheduled start. Scratch that. He's gonna need some time to get his head straight.
Yeah. Otherwise, we don't even know what to do with him.
Yeah, and if you're Steve Yzerman, you may have to consider adding a couple more things to that potential trade deadline shopping list. I would say serviceable goaltender would be one of them.
Yeah, more serviceable, at least. The Red Wings, 14-7-4, 32 points, third place in the not-so-Atlantic division. They were second place after their win in Buffalo when they almost blew a 4-0 lead. Buffalo scored 3 times in the third, but the Red Wings escaped with a 5-3 victory in which Dylan Larkin scored two goals, including the empty netter. Robbie Fabbing and Michael Rasmussen each got a goal and an assist as well.
Credit to Rasmussen of getting two goals tonight too. By the way,
yeah, Rasmussen's been having a hot stick, I tell you.
Mm-hmm.
He has. So we already mentioned Pistons being 2-19 at the beginning of this episode, so we'll just skip that. The Tigers, they signed manager AJ Hinch to a long-term contract extension. It was the right move, period.
Yeah, the right move and a necessary move. It shows that you're still taking things somewhat seriously in terms of wanting to make this team be as competitive as possible, especially in such a weak division. Now it's just a matter of getting the right players.
Yeah,
because you've seen what he can do with minimal talent. Now let's see what he can do with additional talent, and frankly, the difference will be noteworthy.
Yep, they added Mark Canna. They're probably not going to be done yet. Eduardo Rodriguez signed a contract with the Arizona Diamondbacks, while the Tigers also added Kenta Maeda, as we mentioned a week or two ago.
Yeah, Maeda was going to be that veteran presence that likely replaces that spot on the rotation that would have been filled by Erod's absence.
Yeah, exactly, spot on. So, what all did we learn tonight?
Well, we learned. Let's see. I would say that we learned that the Pistons are still dog shit. There's still nothing worth mentioning about them. I don't know, and frankly, this is incumbent and falls on ownership to come out and say something. You know, at least when the Lions were 1-5, 1-6 last year, Sheila Ford she came out and said something. She made a statement. You know, she said things cannot stay like this. Changes have to be made. Things must get better. You know, there's some type of acknowledgement from your top brass as to understand what the hell is going on here. It can't just be Cade Cunningham saying, "Oh, we're bad. We're a bad team." You know, it can't just be Monty Williams looking befuddled and showing he has buyer's remorse. Where is the owner on this? So that's what we learned about the Pistons. We learned that the Red Wings are trying to take this playoff push serious.
Tom Gores is still in California, as far as I know. Last I saw.
Please, lost cause. But anyway, what we learned about the Red Wings is that they're willing to take this playoff push seriously. The way they have played, at least in terms of winning their last 6 of their last 7 games coming into tonight, shows they're serious about this push, as well as the addition of Patrick Kane. And I gotta say, the way he played, the way that Kane played on that ice, Looked for more potential moments to be with him sharing the ice with both Larkin and DeBrincat at the same time, because I was seeing a couple instances where that line had bountiful of scoring chances. It's just a matter of burying the puck in the back of the net. So once we see more of that lineup being showcased, the better, in my opinion. So good job for the Wings, even in terms of the Patrick Kane deal. Even though they blew tonight's game, they're still in a good spot standing wise in terms of the division and the wild card spot. What we learned about the Lions, that frankly they're showing that what good teams should do: bounce back from a bad performance and come out, make a statement, and get a win. They almost blew this one too, but like I said, their defense stepped up when mattered most, and their offense was on point, and they didn't turn over the ball. Like I said, when you take over the ball, you usually are going to win your games. The Lions keep that up, they're going to keep winning a lot of games. And what we learned about Michigan is this: we learned once again that the Big Ten runs through Ann Arbor for the third year in a row. We learned that the athletic department and obviously the school president was Santa Ono. They are showing their intentions. They're making their intentions clear of wanting to keep Jim Harbaugh. And frankly, now we know that Michigan is in a position where to be the best, you got to beat the best. So let's see what they do against Alabama in the Rose Bowl.
Yep, play 60 minutes. So, yes, that is exactly all of what we've learned in this episode on the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on X and Instagram at Michigan_Truth and like its Facebook page. Subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Like our videos and turn on all notifications on the bell icon. Follow it and listen to it in audio form on Spreaker. Follow me on X, TikTok, and Instagram at DT2Phillips. Also on YouTube at DT2Phillips. Follow Ed Smith on X, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube at EdSmith313. Shoutouts go to Athletical Physical Therapy on Woodward and Ferndale, the B4 Foundation, Burke's Waterfront Restaurant in Cadillac for liking our episodes on Instagram. Cali Tickets, call Mark Goldman at 877-225-8425 or visit CaliTickets.com. Creative Embroidery in Cadillac for designing the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast logo on my long sleeve shirt and t-shirt. Cuts by Melanie in Lake City. I might have to get one like real soon. Let's roll with it. Rolled ice cream in Cadillac, where their flavor of the week this week is peppermint coffee or cocoa, peppermint cocoa. Northern Star Event Rentals. Oh, by the way, follow Let's Roll With It Rolled Ice Cream on TikTok at the Food Mafia LLC and on Instagram at the Food Mafia Rolled Ice Cream. Northern Star Event Rentals in Cadillac, 231-884-8195, and on Facebook, United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, Michigan. Our next episode, next Thursday at 11 p.m. I'll bet that's what we'll go with from there on forward. Until then, for Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips, and remember, we observe and detect the truth about Michigan sports because the truth is out there. Stay aware and stay awake. Stay aware, everyone.
Stay safe, everybody. Take care of each other.